the live one where you guys can call me and I get to talk to you, my tribe. I love that. Love talking to you guys. Our tribe, I should say, it's a community that we are building here because you guys talk a lot to each other and comments and giving each other answers and all that. So cool. I love it, love it, love it. But to do that, there's something that's got to happen. You got to call me. And I'm going to give you a number, 844-940-2774. 844-940-2774 to get live on the program. And if you call in earlier, your chances are better of getting on. So we talk about life here, if you don't know that, if this is your first time. So I'm a clinical psychologist. So we talk about the stuff that psychologists deal with. It's our clinical lives, the stress and anxiety and all that stuff, our, depressions, blah, 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 the stuff that we all have experienced at some point or another, many, many more now. And then our relationships. Got anybody that's kind of making you not feel so good? Well, we'll talk about that. And then the third area is the performance area of life, how we get dreams and goals accomplished. All of that happens here by calling 844-940-2774. So before we get to it, I want to make a quick announcement. If you haven't heard, we're having a live webinar called Reconciliation and Estrangement. Officially, the title is Knowing How to Mend and When to Move On. If you have an estranged relationship, is a relationship could be a significant relationship. I mean, marriages get estranged where people aren't even talking to each other anymore. Extended family, friendships, work relationships. Estrangement means a total disconnect, and you got ghosted, or you don't know how to approach them, or things have really, really broken down. Well, we're going to address all that. We're going to help you have a map of figuring out, should you even try? And if you are going to try, what are the best ways to do it? And then once you get into it, what the steps are that make it work, if it's going to work. So that's coming up on April the 16th. Go to this website, boundaries.me/reconcile, right? Reconcile. Yeah, boundaries.me/reconcile to get signed up. Now, this is one that it's not like our show here where you can just log on and watch it. You got to sign up for this one ahead of time. Now, you won't have to watch it live on April 16th at 4 p.m. Pacific, 6 Central. But if you sign up for it, then you can kind of watch it at your leisure. So boundaries.me/reconcile to get on to the way to get in the portal. Okay. We have some write-in or I'm going to take one write-in question in a moment. But before that, one of the things that we generally do on the program is start off talking about something specific, a specific topic for the day. And, there's so much out there in very helpful ways, a lot of helpful stuff out on anxiety now because so many people. Do you know that, and I haven't seen the numbers recently, but do you know that before COVID, about 16 or 17% of America was diagnosable as having anxiety, depression, or addictions? And then post-COVID, it went up over 40% of Americans would in some way meet diagnostic criteria for one of those things. That's a lot of pain, and a lot of it's anxiety. Now, we have an entire webinar on anxiety that goes through everything basically, from what it is, the causes, and how to get better. You can always find that by going to boundaries.me and looking at the workshops. And it's pretty comprehensive. Now, in the limited time we have here, I'm not going to do the whole field of anxiety, but I'm going to focus on one little, and it's not little in terms of its effect, it's huge, but in terms of how big the topic is, just one item. And this item, I think, is really, really important for a number of reasons. Even if you don't have an anxiety disorder, this is something that all of us are prone to in some way. And that is technically, It's it's learning how to not respond to what's going on inside of you that you experience as anxiety. Now, what does that mean? Well, anxiety is a heightened state. Okay. So your adrenal system, your limbic system, everything, if you've got stuff you're carrying around inside from trauma and all of that, your system can kind of stay activated all the time. You can be wired in a way that produces all this internal activation. Well, what that is your body is getting activated. Now, here's what's interesting about anxiety disorders, specifically sometimes panic disorder, is that your system gets activated. But if you were a computer, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference almost in that state and an Olympic swimmer that's getting activated to dive into the water to break a world's record. Now, they're not scared of drowning, okay? They're activated to be able to go do something and even perform at higher levels. The activation that's going on in your body is pretty similar. Now, here's what happens in an anxiety disorder. What people do is the body experiences this activation, and then you feel it, and then your brain's got to interpret, well, why am I feeling that way? Oh, it must be dot, 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 dot. It must be because I'm getting on a plane and the plane could crash, or I'm driving over a bridge and something could go wrong, or my loved one is out driving a car. They could have an accident, or if I get too far away from home, or. And what's happening is, your brain is trying to kind of match up with what you feel inside. Now, here's the problem with that. When your brain tells you that thing is the cause of your anxiety, then what do? You avoid that thing. All right. So if I'm afraid of planes, sometimes I wish I were could travel less. But if I'm afraid of planes, then I feel that. Okay, so what happens? Well, uh, I don't think I'll get on that flight. I'm not going to take that trip. But what happens then is you calm down. Now you've just taught your brain that the cause of the anxiety is the airplane. All right. Could be something that interferes even more with a lot of our lives. What about just social anxiety? Or what about anxiety over maybe intimacy or having a difficult conversation or going in for a job interview? Anytime that we feel afraid of dot, 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 something, here's what happens. You feel the activation and you have a response to the activation. Now, here is the key to a lot of problems. Many times, what we develop is the response to the activated state is to avoid the interview, the bringing up that topic, the getting on the plane, the calling the difficult person. And if we avoid the again, we've trained our brain that the it is the cause of the anxiety because we calm down and it gets reinforced. Like, giving a cookie to a kid for doing their chores. It's going to do it again. Well, the key to this, now again, this is one part of dealing with anxiety, but long term, what's very important is that we have to develop something called response inhibition. Now, this has been around for a long time, a long time. And what you're doing is you're going to start to train your brain to feel the anxiety without doing your normal response. And I'm going to say that again. You're going to feel the anxiety. You're going to actually, sometimes even in treatment, we expose people to the anxiety. Getting closer to getting on an airplane, And what's that going to do? I mean, even making the reservation for some people, or thinking about having that conflict and that difficult discussion. The thinking about it will just in itself, that exposes you to it, and you're going to feel that activation inside. So the scientific name for this is exposure, because you're going to get exposed to the thing, right, that triggers the anxiety, and response inhibition. Exposure and response inhibition. So what that means is that when you feel anxious and you have a response to it, like you're starting to worry. Worry is a big, rumination, all of that are part of this. You start to worry, or you avoid stuff, or you go check the door multiple times to see if you locked it. There's some way in which you have a response, worry, avoidance, reactions, start thinking in certain ways. And that chain is what we are after breaking. So how do you break a chain? Well, you got to grab hold to one piece of it, and you got to undo the link to the rest of the chain. What we're trying to undo is the response, but we're not going to try to undo the activation. That's what I keep calling when your system amps up. Okay. Let me give you an example of this. What we're going to do is we're going to feel it. Okay. You're going to feel it, and you're not going to do anything about it to avoid it. You're going to feel it, and then you're just going to sit with it. Oh, there's that feeling. My body's getting activated. I'm getting amped up. My heart's beating faster. Okay. Now, normally you go do something about it. You start to worry. No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to avoid the plane. We're not going to avoid the conversation. You're going to sit like the Olympic swimmer, ready to jump into the water and feeling amped. But this time, you're not going to try to do away with it. You're going to sit with it and just be with it. Okay. You're going to feel it. Just embrace it. Yeah, there's that feeling. There's that anxious feeling. My daughter, my youngest daughter, she had a really horrible thing happen on an airplane one time. She was about 5 or 6 years old, and the door got locked. She went to the bathroom, the door got locked. And while she was in there, the plane started going over turbulence, and she was locked in. And she developed, some anxiety around that. And then it started to kind of spread, as the technical term is, it started to generalize to other situations, to where she would start to be afraid of sleepovers, and she, all this kind of stuff. And as her dad and a psychologist, because as a psychologist, I know you start to avoid things that you're afraid of, and your world will continue to get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And so I made a commitment. I said, I am not going to allow this to happen. Now, with that commitment, meant I've got to keep her from avoiding things. And this can get pretty tough to do. And a little girl goes off to first of all, plans a sleepover, somebody's birthday. She's going to go. Then she's starting to get anxious, doesn't want to go. No, Lucy, you're going. Lucy, you're going to go, and not letting her avoid it. And then when you get the call at 9 o'clock, come get me, come get me. No, you're going to stay there. Good night, and hang up the phone. It's a hard thing to do, but by the way, she did awesome. She's 21 now. She performs. She's a singer-songwriter, performs on stage, and has a big life, travels a lot. But in fact, I've interviewed her on this program before about it, and she'll tell you, the hardest thing was to learn to sit with the anxiety without doing the response. I remember I taught her a little formula. Feel it, accept it, act or choose. In other words, okay, I'm going to feel the anxiety. I'm just going to accept it. It just as it is. Just learn to feel it, sit with it, just sit with it. And then I'm going to act. I'm going to go to the party. And if it comes with me, it's coming with me. And I'm just going to, when I feel it, I'm going to interpret it as a bodily reaction, which is what it is, not go thinking crazy things about it, but just learn to embrace it. I actually had the experience one time. Had a coworker who had a severe fear of flying. I mean, would not get on a plane without taking a bunch of tranquilizers. And if there was a bar near the gate, she was going to hit it hard before she went on. We used to all kind of laugh at how we kind of had to drag her through security. And I kept trying to, I said, let me help you. Let me help you. Let me help you. I can help you with this. No, 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 it's fine. And what you try to do is control it. The worst thing you do is try to control it, because you try to control it, then you can't control it. And then it scares you that I can't control it. And then it starts to spiral, right? So I said, just give me one crack at it. So we had about a 3-hour flight. So just give me one crack, just one time. She says, okay. So we get on the plane. I'm sitting next to her. I said, okay, when you start to feel it, I want you to tell me. She said, I'm feeling it. Okay. I said, okay, here's what I want you to do. Just sit there and just try to get into the feeling. Tell me where you feel it. She says, so I feel it in my chest. I feel it in my arms. Okay, feel it. Tell me what it feels like. Just going to sit with it. It's not going to kill you. Might be a little uncomfortable. Let's just sit with it. Let's just sit with it. And we went through this over and over and over. And then she'd start to, start to try to control her. She'd start to look at, no, don't look around. Everything's, don't look around. I just want you to feel it. Just accept it as it is. We're not going to do anything with it. Don't even think about it in terms of the plane. Are we okay? No, I'm not going to do that. I just want you to focus on your body. Just breathe and focus on your body, not trying to make it go away. I said, don't try to make it go away, because the part of your brain that's in control is not the part where the anxiety is coming from. It's coming from the part you can't control. So we're just going to let it do its thing. We're just going to sit there and sit there, sit there. Now, I don't want to make any false expectations here. I have seen this happen. It does happen quickly sometimes. Usually it takes much more than that. By the time we finished that 3-hour flight, she was pretty much over her fear. And the next year we traveled a lot and just kind of wasn't much of an issue anymore. Now, what has happened in that? What's the technical kind of thing that's happening? Well, what's happened over time is your body's activated for whatever reason. It could be trauma from something. It could be thinking patterns like the cognitive people focus on. It could be a lot of different stuff. But when you avoid, see, we're talking about response inhibition. When you avoid the normal response, like not talking to the person or starting to worry about it, worry itself is a mechanism to try to calm yourself down, but it doesn't help. When you start to obsess about it, whatever, instead of just feeling it and letting it be. See, when we do the response, it trains it that that is really the problem. But this time, when I let her do the response, just going to feel the activation. So she felt the activation on and off for a few hours, but she didn't do anything about it. So what happens? Your brain starts to go, huh, I must have been wrong. Huh. When you have that feeling, it must not mean that something bad's going to happen. It must mean something else. And then over time, it's like, well, if there's nothing to be afraid of, then activation even starts to go away. So obviously, there's other aspects in treating anxiety, but this response inhibition is a big one. So I want you to, whatever it is you're kind of anxious about, Learn, this is what mindfulness does. Mindfulness just sits there with it and notices. Noticing is a big word in mindfulness. You sit there and you notice, oh, there's my body responding. There it is. I just played in a golf tournament, and I hadn't played in a golf tournament forever because of my injuries. And I, I remember standing up on the first tee and all of a sudden feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm about to hit a shot that counts for the first time in forever. And I remember feeling that. And then I remember exactly what we're talking about. And I pictured the Olympic swimmer. Oh, well, I'm just getting ready to perform better. That's just my body. And just let it be there. And then I hit the shot. But if you start to think, oh my gosh, that means I don't want to hit it in the bunker, I don't want to hit it in the lake, then you start to take control. Then it actually amps it up. So all of this is to say, you can't always talk yourself out of a bodily activation. What you can do is let it end with the bodily activation. That's all that's going to happen. I'm not going to avoid the conflict. I'm not going to try to hit the shot differently. I'm not going to get off the plane. I'm not going to avoid, going to the party, whatever it is. I'm just going to embrace this is the feeling. It's okay. There's my heart rate. There's that queasy feeling. And just learn to let it be. And when you let it be and let it be and let it be and let it be, then you kind of learn there's nothing to fear but fear itself. So there's just a little trick. Now, I'll give one little disclaimer on this. There are some times um, that going further into getting triggered can become too much for some people. That's why we do this, as I said, in incremental ways. Sometimes it's just thinking about it. Sometimes it's taking somebody's agoraphobic, they might going to the front porch, and asking them to go to the grocery store. You don't want to trigger, especially if people have PTSD and some very difficult things. This has to be monitored by somebody who knows what they're doing. And you don't want to overwhelm the system where it's too traumatizing. But by and large, if you look at all of the research and treatment and all of that, that it's very unusual. People want to get over a fear in order to do something. It's very unusual to get over the fear so you can do something. It's usually the case that you got to do something with the fear and let the fear learn that the something is not causing the fear. And that means we learn to kind of just embrace it. That's how I feel. I'm anxious. It's okay. I'm not going to interpret it catastrophically. Now, if you want to go more deeply into this, go to boundaries.me. And if you go to our workshops tab, you'll see, I think it's called Outsmart Your Anxiety, and a whole I think a 2.5 hour-ish webinar on this. And the boundaries.me platform has a lot on it about dealing with anxiety. So look that up, www.boundaries.me. All righty. I said we were going to have a write-in question that we're going to go to before we go to the phone calls. Let me give the number 844-940-2774 to get on the air. And sooner you call, higher up here on the list, 844-940-2774. Again, our webinar, Reconciliation and Estrangement, coming up April 16th. Go to boundaries.me/reconcile to sign up for that. Okay, so here's our write-in question. Love our write-in questions. Hear from people and see what's going on. I come from a close-knit family that values togetherness. That's a good thing. Close-knit, as long as it's not knotted up, right? I often feel suffocated by their constant need for communication and shared activities. That's what I meant by knotted up. How can I set healthy boundaries with my family members without hurting their feelings or causing misunderstandings? Um, well, one of those is certainly more easily accomplished than the other. Let's start with that because we're going to deal with both of them. You said without hurting their feelings or causing misunderstandings. One of the best ways to not hurt their feelings is get rid of the misunderstandings. Okay. Um, Let me give you a phrase. It's one that you'll hear me say a lot. It's called mutually agreed upon expectations. Sometimes with a family like this, that's hard to get to, and you can at least get to mutually understood expectations, if not agreed upon. So, um, let's talk about the dynamic here. Here's the dynamic. Every relationship implies two. There's two parties here. Okay. There's you and your family. Well, in your family, there's multiple parties. All right. Now, me and the building across the street or across town, we don't have a relationship. We're just two parties. Okay. But there's a house next door to me, a little closer proximity. And we actually do have a relationship. Okay. You and your family, or in a marriage, or in a friendship, the two have come together to produce something that is one. Okay. It's the relationship. But in the relationship, there are still two, you and the other. All right. So this brings up a great discussion to have with your family. And I have had this with a lot of families that have this problem. First thing we do is we put up on the board the family, right? And a circle is composed of members. So we put everybody's a little circle. And then we make the circles make a circle. And then you draw lines through all of those that show all of these together make this one big circle called the family. But they're also separate circles. So here's the question for the family. If we take all of those and bunch them up together, then we've lost the separate people. Now there are no more individuals in this. It's this clump of glue, and we're losing individuality in that. So you get them to understand, first of all, a family has togetherness and it also has separateness of the people. Now, the rules of the family must serve both stakeholders, actually, all three stakeholders, must serve enough togetherness so that we're a family as opposed to the building across town. There's got to be enough togetherness, enough communication, all of that, that there's glue that holds us together. Okay, that's important. At the same time, there's got to be enough space and enough autonomy, individual choices, better word is separateness of the individual circles to where I can have not only my family life, but my life. See, in a relationship, there's the relationship, and we need to get together enough to maintain our relationship and have it thrive. But we've also got to serve the other two stakeholders, which is the individuals. And there's three different parties that have to eat from this trough. There's the relationship, and then there's the individuals. So here's a discussion. Sit down with them and say, you know what, I want to talk about some together times and some together activities that we need. And then I want to talk about my need, and I do believe other people's needs, to be separate and have some away time, alone time, separate interests, separate friends that aren't the family friends, all of that. And let's begin to talk about how that works, particularly in time and communication. Okay. So, mom, um, I think now that I'm 40 years old, or however, I've got a lot of stuff I need to do in my life that don't involve the family. And I want to have time with the family as well that I won't be doing the stuff that I have to do in my life, like going to work and having other friends and hobbies and this and the other. Let's talk about everybody's preferences for how much family time or how much communication we actually need and want, and how much individual time we need and want. And you start with a baseline of how far apart you are. And then you begin to negotiate to meet the needs of each one in a way that might have different solutions than what everybody's decided. So, mom, it's really difficult for me to, at my age, we used to have family dinner 5 nights a week when I lived in the house. Well, now I got my own family, or now I got my own friends, and this and the other. And so can't do that anymore. Um, but I'd love to see you guys. What if we all get together and have family dinner once a month or whatever? And you start to have the expectations and you say, you know what? The constant communication throughout the day, I just can't do that. That's not good for me being able to do my work and this and the other. Um, but you know, we can check in with each other, once a week or something, or spontaneously if you want to. I just can't be expected to always respond. So I would go at it from the angle of how much togetherness we really need and how much separateness we need, and find out what the differences are, and then have the conversation about that before you get into the moment. Now, one quick word about the second part of your question when you said without hurting their feelings. There are some people that any separateness is going to be experienced by them as hurtful. Uh, if someone has borderline personality, for example, a lot of times any kind of separateness, any kind of boundaries feels horrible to them. But you can't determine what's right by the feelings of somebody that has a lot of dependency needs. And at that point, what you do is you empathize. Say, I know this is hard for you, but I do need my own time. Okay. And this is something kids should learn early. I'm worried about our culture today. There's so much helicoptering. I heard of or I think it's my wife was telling me she read an article now that parents are going on job interviews with teenagers or young adults and then calling HR to find out about the interview. Are you kidding me? How's a kid going to develop competency and agency in the world if they can't negotiate the world without their parents? That's the job of the parent, is to push them out of the nest and make them deal with it and let them perform and let them, make mistakes and get corrected and have consequences and all that kind of stuff. So this all goes into that. But sometimes you can't avoid, and when you said hurt their feelings, I wouldn't interpret that way. You're not hurting their feelings. The structure of the universe is experienced as painful to them. Very big difference. Because with one of them comes guilt and the other one comes empathy. So if you're interpreting it as you're hurting their feelings by saying no, then you're going to carry some guilt and I'm such a bad person and I should be more loving and all that kind of crap that goes through your head, as opposed to the structure of life itself is painful for some people until they work that out. And when we see pain in somebody, we have empathy. So you respond when you make your choices, you respond with empathy. You say, I know this is hard for you when I go to work or when I do that. I'm sorry it's hard for you. You have empathy. So that might be a good way to start with it. Okay, 844-940-2774, 844-940-2774. Don't forget to go check out the webinar we have coming up on reconciliation and estrangement, how to fix it, when to fix it. Go to boundaries.me/reconcile to do that. Okay, let's see here. We've got to figure out, oh, this will be kind of one of those family situations. Put my headphones on so I can hear the caller. We're going to talk to Sarah, who's calling us from Kansas with an in-law boundaries question. Sarah, welcome to the program.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, my question does really follow very well to the previous written in question about boundaries. And what happened was I drew a boundary and stood up for myself to my sister-in-law when she had been repeatedly insulting me. And that was experienced, I think, by her as a rejection. And she proceeded to sort of launch a campaign within our family, her friends, of kind of smearing me and telling lies. And
Wow.
this has been going on. Yeah, this has been going on for months and months and months. It'll kind of ebb and flow, and my brother will kind of, speak to me at times, hoping that I could, I think, just forget things that have happened. And that's obviously really difficult for me. I think perhaps she's threatened by my relationship with my brother. And so
What
I guess my question would
can I
be,
ask this? Let me try to figure out the ground we're standing on to begin with. Does your brother understand that she's got some problems?
I think he does, and I think that's difficult for him to face as well.
But but you kind of think that he sees that you're not really the bad guy.
Yes, yes, I
Okay.
think so too, but I think it's sort of a trying to make peace and make his life. He's dealing with a very severe illness right now. Um,
Oh, of his
and
own?
this began, yes, yes. And this began after his diagnosis.
Okay. All right. So real quickly, tell me why you had to draw the boundary that you talked about. Why'd you have to do that? What was she doing?
Um, in mostly in times when she would be consuming alcohol, she would just launch insults at me.
Okay, give me an
Um,
example. Is this at a
but
family gathering or the two of you are out to dinner or what?
once it was in a public place, but it was just she and I. Another time it was in front of other people, and she said that if if my brother had any other siblings, she would lose her mind. She was so frustrated with me at the time because I wouldn't do something she asked me to do, which was go
What
dance
did
out on the dance floor.
she ask you to go dance with her and you didn't want to do that and you
Yep.
said no? Okay.
I said, no,
And
no, 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 no. I just kept kind of waving her off. No, no. I wasn't drinking, and she wanted to go have a good time. And I was just said, no, no, no. And so she looked at the person next to her that I had just met for the first time that night and said, oh my, explicative, if if he had another sibling, I would lose my explicative mind. It was very humiliating to me. And previously she's always told everyone that she loves me so much, and she thinks I'm so amazing. But then in these situations, it's actually the opposite of what comes out of her mouth is,
let me ask you a question.
insults and put
When
down.
okay, you're sitting in a public place, she obviously does something that most people would think that was weird, right? Right? Wasn't
Yeah.
everybody else was noticing she was kind of off the rails a little bit?
There was only at that time within earshot, there was only one other person. And it was just shocking.
Okay, but why were you humiliated? Usually when somebody does something that that could be self humiliating for her, why were you humiliated by it? In other
Because I
words,
had
why
just,
weren't you just like,
yeah,
like that's weird? Humiliation,
yeah.
I'm trying to understand the humiliation.
Okay. And maybe it was mostly shock. I think it's because I had just met this other person, and my sister-in-law said that in front of this other person. So it was, at least I was embarrassed because um yeah, I don't I just felt like she just kind of threw me under the bus and insulted me right there in front of this person, and
Okay,
it was
again,
very
now,
shocking.
Sarah,
It,
I'm not trying to pick on you here, but and I understand it's kind of
yeah,
weird if somebody do that. When you said threw you under the bus, that's a lot of power in this event that you're taking very personally instead of attributing it to her. I mean, she kind of threw herself under the bus by being weird, right? Now, here's why I'm saying this. However, when we get to the next part of your question, which is how do you deal with this? Okay. I think how you deal with it is going to be affected greatly by how you're experiencing this problem to begin with. If you take it as an offense that kind of gets to you, humiliates you, hurts your feelings, and all this kind of stuff by just goofy behavior, then that gets the response down a path that becomes sort of like a adversarial me against her. She's persecuting me. I'm kind of being victimized by her, all of this. I understand that she's doing some behavior, but I'd like to encourage you to get separate from it psychologically and just see it as, yeah, my sister-in-law's got a problem. You follow me?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's
I
very
want you to
helpful.
not be bothered by this crazy behavior and just see it as start with and just see it as oh well, there she goes, and turn to the other person and go, that's my sister-in-law, which I think normal people go, oh yeah, I have one of those too, or something. So it's just a beginning tip. I want you to monitor your internal reactions to her so she doesn't have so much power in this. Okay. So,
Absolutely.
okay, so she did that. Now that didn't lead to the big boundary you're talking about, right? What was the big family issue that led to the big, and what was the boundary?
Well, it so there was repeated occasions of these behaviors from her, and I addressed it first with my brother instead of first with her.
And the
And
repeated behaviors of doing
she took a,
stuff like that.
yeah, yeah, yes, yes.
Okay,
And she took offense to that I didn't come to her first.
that's
And
fair.
then but she denied every single one of them.
Okay. All right. So what's
Every
the question?
well, so because then after that, what started to happen is she began lying about me, and vilifying me to my brother, to her family and friends, and then now, I mean, it's just kind of, it's snowballed. And I, after, after a few months of this, I asked if we could sit down and have a conversation about this, and she refused.
So
Um,
you tried to talk
and
to her.
now, right, once it it became this, you know, she's telling my brother lies about me, and then so on and so on.
What would be a
Um,
lie? What
I
would be an example of a lie she told?
It's going to sound crazy, but her and my brother had me do the toast at their wedding reception, and she said that I insulted her in the toast.
Well, that was a public thing, right? So everybody heard it.
Yes, there were hundreds of people there. It was videotaped and audio
Okay.
taped.
So
No one else
what
but
did you
her and her
say?
family.
What did you say that she found insulting?
Well, she actually made that up. She she said that I said, she sees what she wants and she goes after it. And I, even though I didn't say that, and many people say, well, that sounds like a strong woman. That sounds like a positive thing. I continue to say, I
Right.
actually didn't say that, but that's
What
what
did
she found offensive. And
what did you say that she took it to say that?
to that, I said she is one of the most focused and determined people that I've ever met, which is very true. She does research for my brother's illness.
Yeah.
She
Okay.
finds,
All right.
just
So
on and on and on.
so
She's very focused.
everybody else was there, and then they started to believe her, even though they were there. They started to believe her that you did this.
Yes. Not, mostly her family, her friends, and then she's kind of said it enough to my brother that my brother's asked me to just apologize for it. And I said, I've told you before, I actually didn't say that. Could we get the videotape from it? And he puts it off, saying that if he doesn't have access to that, and then if he asks her to get the videotape, it's going to make it a bigger issue. And then he just puts it back on me to just, can you just tell her some sort of an apology?
And you think that would fix it?
No, I don't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't see anything wrong um, with saying to her, it sounds like you were, uh, like it hurt your feelings when I talked about you being strong and determined. And I'm really sorry I hurt your feelings. I certainly didn't mean to. From my side, it was a compliment, but if I hurt your feelings, I'm really sorry. What's wrong with that?
Nothing. And I mean, I can definitely do that. It's difficult after like everything, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
here's what I'm
you
after.
know,
Okay. Um, the way you describe it, she's clearly goes off the rails and being, kind of divisive and stirring the pot and all that kind of stuff, right? And so all you can do is all you can do. One of my favorite verses in the Bible says this. It says, "Inasmuch as it depends on you, be at peace with everybody." Now I love that verse because it doesn't say you got to be at peace with everybody, because that's impossible. Because some people don't want peace. They want division. They want dissension. They want to stir up the pot. They want to take offense to it. They want to turn people into enemies. They want to turn people against other people. All you can do is what depends on you. And that's why I started with the less you can begin to take this stuff personally, because it sounds like it has very little to do with you. It has a lot to do with her and her psychology, right? If you're saying she's a determined person and she takes that as an insult and goes and tries to do all this stuff, that's just, kind of out of bounds. So I depersonalize all of this stuff first. Okay. Depersonalize it. And then, as much as it depends on you, you could apologize for saying, "Gosh, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. I didn't mean to. I felt like it was a compliment. I learned now I didn't feel that way to you, and so I'm sorry." And that's and going from there. And then, generally speaking, the happiest people are people that don't have to track down every time somebody who's kind of off the rails goes and does something weird. They just kind of blow it off. And then what you've got to focus on is what you can control, and that's your relationship with your brother and the other members of the family. Now, when they have their normal relationship with you, they're going to know. They're going to figure it out, kind of who's doing what. And then when when she comes up, you can say, "Gosh, I don't quite understand, but good luck," and kind of unplug from having her have so much power. Now, if it goes further than that, and she does begin to alienate other people towards you, and they start doing weird things towards you, then what I would do is, because you've tried to do the right thing and talk to her first, right? Um,
Yes.
I don't think it's going to work, but you could say to them, it seems like what I understand is that you and, Susie has talked to you and somehow that's caused a rift between us. I'd like for the three of us to get together and talk about what actually happened and get everybody together at once. Then you can't do the divisive thing. My hunch is she's not going to want to do that. And maybe they're not going to want to do that either, is my guess. Right. So then what you can do, and this is what I'll leave you with, is where it actually affects the relationship. And you're feeling the effect of the relationship from the third person, and those other things didn't work. Then what I would do is I'd sit down with that person and say, look, I don't want to get into specifics. I don't want to gossip, all of that. If you do want to get together, the three of us, I'll be glad to do that. But I am aware that sometimes some things are said about me that did not happen and are not what I said or did. And those things, it seems like, are affecting my relationship with you. I really value my relationship with you. And I would just make one request. If you hear something that makes you act or feel differently towards me, then please come and talk to me. Because I want you to relate to me and have our relationship depend on who we are together, not what you hear outside of our relationship. And I would just make that request to you because I don't want to be estranged from you because of something a third party says, and I wouldn't even call her by name. They'll know who you're talking about. Say, look, if you hear something about me or something bothers you, just come to me. Check it out. I do it that way.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, thanks for your call, and I hope it helps you. And what I would like for you to do is to work internally on not letting this woman have so much power. And say, your brother, look, bro, look, we've been brother and sister for decades. And if I do something to offend you, tell me, but come talk to me because I care about our relationship. I really can't control what's going on out there. And kind of keep that as good as it can be. Okay, thank you for your call, Karen. The old-timey technical term for this is triangulation, and it's person A is mad at person B. Okay, so person A, instead of going to person B and working it out, they go to person C, and then that changes person C's relationship with person B. That's crazy making. Because person C has now got a problem with person B. Was it A or B? A and C have a problem. Don't know my alphabet anymore. In other words, there's nothing wrong between the two of them. And now there's something wrong between the two of them because somebody else. Well, it's good to talk to people directly. There's a great Bible passage about this in Matthew 18, starting in verse 15. It says, if if somebody does something to you, go and talk to them in private and then work it out. Great, it's over. If you can't if you can't resolve it there, it says bring in somebody else or a couple of more people and try to solve it there. Sometimes I say that, when we've gone down a wrong road, it's very difficult to turn a wrong road into a good road. We got to go back and get on the good road to begin with. It sounds like your sister-in-law went down a wrong road instead of dealing with it directly with you and resolving it, went down a wrong road. And so now we got a mess. Well, how do you fix a mess? You get back on the right road and you start to do things the way they're designed. And that is when we have a problem with a person, we talk to the person. If we can't resolve it with a person, we bring in somebody else, not against the person, but in service of getting us back together. And other people that we bring in to the circle of crap have got to come with one of those brushes and a bucket of Clorox. They're showing up to help clean it up, not to make it worse. And what she's doing, apparently, is she's bringing other people to make it worse, not clean it up. So let's try to do it the right way. Okay. Wow, we have a lot of family stuff going on today. Finley, my favorite name of the callers today, because we have a dog named Finley, is calling us from Washington. And sounds like Finley's a single parent, but other people think that they are the parents. Is that right, Finley?
Oh, yeah, that is probably part of it. Yeah.
All right, what's going on?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So 46, full disclosure, 46 single parent. I got amazing parents. Okay. I'd be remiss if I didn't say they're amazing people. Okay. But
Noted.
they're a little bit overly, yeah, okay, thank you. They're a little bit overly involved in my life at times, to the extent where I went on a trip recently last weekend, and they said, I need you to check in when you land. And I said, no, I'm probably not going to do that. I'm just ready to, I'm getting a vacation for my kid, and and they said it's
Ah.
common courtesy, and I'm like,
Wait a
no,
minute,
it's
wait a minute,
not.
wait,
But
wait, wait,
but
wait,
then
wait,
I'm,
wait, wait. Hold on, I gotta get the facts right.
uh-oh,
Were they watching
uh-oh.
your kid for you?
No, no. No,
Oh,
she's
okay.
15. She was with her dad. Yeah, she's not like
Oh,
a, no,
they're not
no, not at
babysitting
all.
your kid.
Um,
You're 46, you're going on a trip, your
no,
parents want you to call them when you land?
yeah, that's an example. So that's just an example. So yes, and I instantly am like resistant to that,
Really?
and that's even saying, okay, gosh. So I want to be honest. Saying this out loud makes me feel like a fool. But it's not just this one thing. To
I'm
me, this
sure
is a
it's not.
symptom of a bigger problem,
Give me
right? So
three real
and like,
quickly, three more examples. I'm loving this. 46-year-old, and you got to check in.
well,
All right. Give me
like, I mean,
two
it's
more examples.
well, okay, man, these are going to sound so off. Well, like sometimes I have to remind them that my daughter is my daughter and not their daughter. Like they'll call and say, they'll remind me of when spring break is because they went online and looked, and I'm like, why? Hey, first of all, I know that, and second of all, why do you? Why? I mean, they need a hobby. We know this, okay, but
Oh,
they're
they
not
have
getting
one.
one anytime
It's
soon.
called Finley.
I am their hobby, and I will tell you, being their child is the greatest thing, and but it's a lot of pressure because I feel like I'm the center of their happiness, and I feel like a terrible human saying that out loud because I have friends whose parents don't care. But I feel like when they do that sometimes, it also makes me feel, which is mine to own, but it makes me feel like they don't believe I can handle my life or that I can raise my child or that I can pay my own bill. It's like
Well, okay, just
they're
stop.
solving problems for me.
Stop. It makes you feel like they don't believe that you can do this. That's what you said?
That is part of it, yes.
Okay, let's just stop. 100% right. Apparently, they don't. Okay?
Yeah.
All right, so let's just start there. Let's just accept that. Yeah, they don't think you can do it. All right? So that's just a fact. It sits out there in the universe. They don't think you can do it. So then what?
Are you asking me?
Yeah. So
Oh,
what?
I mean,
So
I,
what?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess I should be thrilled when they, send me gift cards and whatever because they don't want
No,
me to have to cook dinner. And
wait a minute.
maybe should I be stoked about that? I don't know.
No,
I just because I mean
stop.
I've
Family, stop for a second. I just want, I don't want to have to do anything with it. Okay. It's probably raining in Alaska right now. So I'm not going to do anything about that. I just want you to get comfortable first with allowing a thunderstorm to be happening in somebody else's house. They're all worried about you and they're obsessing about this, right? And you live your life. See, they're over connected to you,
correct.
right? But
Correct.
you've got the wiring in your own head, so you can snip those wires from your side. I want you to learn to let them be anxious and over concerned and this, that, and the other. And if that's how they want to spend their time worrying about you, that's fine. Let's accept that. Now, when it gets to practicalities, then we can talk about how to deal with it when it starts to express itself. But you're not going to express itself. You're not going to deal with the realities well until you just go, well, that's them. That's who they are. But now when they send the gift card, it's amping you up, right? They don't feel like I can cook dinner. They don't, and you're caring a lot about what they're worried about. Does that make sense?
It is interesting how much a gift card can trigger me. I mean,
Well, because
don't
it's
get me wrong, I'm still going to
symbolic.
go to Chick-fil-A and eat.
Hey,
But
hey, hey,
I'm
hey,
still
do
going to go
not,
use
do
it. But
not, do not, do
yeah,
not stop them. Forward those gift cards to me. I'll deal with your problem for you. I'll go right down to Chick-fil-A. You just said, don't stop the gift cards. Don't do that.
it
Just
just
don't.
feels like there's strings. If
Oh,
you're going to, because
oh,
it's
whoa,
like,
whoa,
even
whoa,
if
whoa,
they force it
whoa,
upon
whoa.
me.
Whoa. Now there's something. Now we're talking about practicalities, right? So the gift card is coming
Yeah,
with an IOU.
right. Well, yeah,
Right.
unspoken, because they'll say this is just, we just want to send this. But then they'll say, but we want you to check in when your flight lands.
Okay.
I'm like,
Okay, mom,
that's the
mom.
string.
Well, did they make that connection in a sentence? We sent you a gift card, so the least you could do is check in
Oh
when
no,
you
they're
land.
not that deep.
Okay,
They're
great.
not
Then
that
we don't
deep.
have to
That's
deal with
me.
it.
That's how my head works.
Okay, so let's just go back to the checking in. All
Okay.
right. Okay, so I'm going to be
Sure.
Finley.
Sure.
I'm going to be the new Finley. Okay,
Okay.
and you be mom.
Hmm.
Hello.
Hi, did you know there's a recall on Jif peanut butter today?
Uh, Mom, I didn't check the peanut butter recalls. So is it
Oh,
uh
okay.
something you want me to do
I
something
I
about?
just wanted to make sure, but while I have you, I just wanted to make sure because there is a recall and I just didn't know if you saw it on the news, and I just want to make sure you don't eat that. But also make sure Finley's actually my daughter, but make sure Finley doesn't eat it. And also I know you were going on a trip. I really can you it's just common courtesy if you let me know when you land.
Well, Mom, sorry if that is common where you come from. It's not common where I come from. And by the way, this is a trip that I've had planned for a long time to kind of get away from everything here. I want to get away from my daughter. I want to get away from you guys. I want to get away from work. And so I'm checking out and leaving, and I am not checking in.
How will we know if you're okay?
I don't know. Watch the news. I mean, if you know about peanut butter recalls, you probably know if a flight crashed. I'll give you my flight number. You want to go on the United site and track me, you can, but I'm not checking in.
And then the silent treatment begins.
Oh, stay in character here with me. Stay in character.
No, that's what would happen. She'd just say, that's when I know now there's going to be a process. So then she would say, sorry, then I would say, okay, well, I guess just have a good time. I guess
Mom,
just have a good time. Be safe. There are crazy people out there.
I plan on, I'm so excited about this trip. I've been looking forward to this trip for so long, especially the part about not just forgetting everything here. So thanks for the well wishes. I appreciate it. You're such a great mom.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
I don't know
You want
how
to do
to go
another one?
after that. I mean, she
You
hasn't
want
called me since I got back. I'll tell you that. No, I think I think this is
problem
good. I think I get,
solved.
I mean,
Problem
she hasn't,
solved.
well, it is, well, but except I'm riddled with guilt because they sit at home and I'm the center of their world and I'm not, you see the cycle here where it's
Oh,
this,
I see the
like,
cycle,
I'm
but
so
a
grateful for
cycle,
them.
that's a continuous circle. I'm asking you to step off the merry-go-round. They can continue the cycle
Yeah,
inside their own house. It's raining in Alaska. I'm not wearing a raincoat here. I think you got a lot of work to do
yeah.
inside your head to clip the strings from your side, which is the only side that you can control, and let them obsess about you if that's what they want to do. Now, if she calls you about the peanut butter recall, is she going to call you later in the day to tell you about that, you know, detergent's 30% off at Costco? You better run down there and get some?
I mean, I wouldn't put it past her.
I mean, she call you multiple
Sure.
times a day?
She oftentimes, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, then you might this thing called caller ID. It's got a button on there. It says send to voicemail.
Yep. Yeah, she's one of those where I won't drag this out, but she is one of those where uh, goes to voicemail, will send a text, and I do tend to ignore those because I'm working. But if she does too
Hello.
many, I'll say I'm working. Yeah.
Yeah, I just but here's what I was gonna say. She calls back. I think what you could say if she does that a lot, you could say, Mom, you know what? I'm so grateful for you and all the wonderful things that you've done for me as my mom. Um, and but I just want to tell you this when you call a lot during the day or whatever, um, I've got work to do, so I really can't answer. So, if I don't answer, don't be offended. It's just I'm doing my work, and you know, I'll check in with you tomorrow or sometime if you need something.
Yeah. It's funny. It sounds so simple. I mean, clearly, just talking about this, what I've just realized is, we have a lifetime of this, right? Lifetime of solving all my problems, lifetime of sparing me of pain, which is why I've had to spend 10 years in therapy trying to, or did spend years trying to get over like a divorce, right? Lack of resilience. And so I think I'm fighting that now, right? Because now I
Right,
see it. Like,
right,
I
and
don't need you to save me anymore. I'm a big girl.
you are a big girl, and you didn't need them to save you way back when they were saving you when you're a little girl,
Right.
probably. And so
Right.
what we're going to
Right.
start to do now is I'm going to take you way. You ready to go in a time machine? I'm going to take you back in a time machine.
Mhm.
Ready? Okay, we're
Sure.
going to go all
Mhm.
the way back, all the way back. You're 2 years old. Okay.
Mhm.
What's your favorite word?
Word?
Word. What's every 2 year old's favorite word? They learn it, they use it all the time.
No.
No, that's it.
No.
Yeah. So internally, when all this noise comes at you, I want you to become 2 years old and start over again. Learn how to say a word that naturally came natural to you was no, I don't want that.
Mhm.
No, I don't want that. No, I'm not going to bother with that. No, I don't want to do this. I want to do this. And somehow when that word started to emerge in you, they started, giving you Chick-fil-A gift cards and burying you in so much that the no can't even get out from the top of them. So internal
True.
boundaries, I think. The external ones are easy. You just say, no, I'm not going to check in with you. I'm going to be fine. But you got to get the internal ones first. All right.
Exactly. No, I see that now. Totally. Yep. I do. Yeah.
All right. I want you
Yep.
to, I wish I had one. I would send it to you, but I don't have, I used to have a warehouse with all my books and stuff. I don't anymore, but I wrote a book called Changes That Heal. And there's a whole section in there on boundaries. It's actually the boundaries book came after that. And the boundaries section of Changes That Heal goes deep, deep, deep into these internal boundaries and why it's so important. Now, the one thing I don't want you to
Okay.
do is stop her from sending you those Chick-fil-A gift cards because I want you to forward them to me and I won't get offended. And if you even could call me and let me know that peanut butter has been discounted, then I won't get offended at that if you keep sending me those Chick-fil-A cards. All right. Thanks for your call.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Hey, are you a boundaries.me member?
No, but I'm gonna be.
You
I just
sure
stumbled
are.
upon this.
Well, you sure are
Yeah.
because I'm going to gift you a boundaries.me plus membership that gives you access to the whole thing. So you stay on the line and Albie or Greg or one of those guys will take care of it for you. Thanks for your call.
I have put her on hold, Henry.
Okay. Albie? I heard a voice from outer space. Is Albie there?
She's on with me right now, Henry. Sorry about
Okay.
that.
So we got it. Hey, Albie, say hi to everybody because when they call, they're going to be glad to talk to you anyway. Albie and Greg make all
Hang
this
on one.
work from behind the scenes, and we're spread out all over the country, but somehow those techno geniuses make this work. So appreciate you guys each and every time. All right. Well, that is speaking of each and every time, that's our time for today. We are going to be back at it before too long, I think. I think before too long. I try to do the show whenever I'm not traveling or working. Or, sometimes it's every day, sometimes it's here and there, but I'll see you as soon as I can be back. And in the meantime, go to boundaries.me/reconcile and get signed up for the webinar we're having on estrangement and reconciliation on April the 16th. You got to go and get registered beforehand in order to be able to enter the room there. It's all online, but you got to register. Boundaries.me/reconcile. Okay. It's good to be with y'all. And without any further announcements I got to make, I think we did it all. I'll see you next time.